Okay, welcome everybody to our session on why teach students about what they need to do to be happy. My name is Amy Sankard. I'm at the University of Michigan. This is, go ahead.
Larry Krieger, FSU.
Okay, so I'm going to start with just a couple of quick little exercises. We're going to use 2 of the note cards now and 4 of them later. So you need 6 note cards, and then there's a handout of some data to get us started. On the roadmap for our session, just so everybody's on the same page, is we're going to do a couple little exercises right now. Larry's going to dive into his research and tell you the amazing empirical grounding that he has. And then we're both going to talk about what we do in our classes, and then we're going to let you guys collaborate with each other about what you do and can be doing on this topic in your own classes. And then we'll come back together at the end. So, on the way in, we asked you to get 6 note cards. I know that's a lot. Yep, so get 6. Sorry, Jody.
It's making me so unhappy.
Okay, well, maybe we can work on that. Actually, this first note card might also make you unhappy. Because what I'm going to ask you to do is, on one of the note cards, write, how would you design an unhappy life for yourself? Or a professional colleague. What practices would you make sure to implement that would make them unhappy or make you unhappy? And what things would you definitely not do if you were trying to be unhappy? Does that make sense? So the opposite of happy. What would you do?
And what would you avoid?
Yeah, and what would you avoid? Huh?
In work. And a work setting, right?
Both.
Whatever comes to your mind.
Whatever comes to mind.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
Work, home.
Work, home, life, all the things. Yes?
How many different items?
You need 6 note cards, and however many items you want to jot down. Yeah. Do you have note cards? Okay.
There's no grades in here, just.
Yeah, things that would make you or a colleague unhappy. You're deliberately going out of your way to be unhappy. What would you do? Okay. I'm going to call time on that. You can continue thinking about it. It's actually an interesting question to do the opposite. And then on a second note card, please write the most successful or effective thing you already do to enhance your students' current or future well-being. So what's something you're already doing for your students? Write that on a different note card. It could be more than one thing, but I'm asking for one.
It could be a specific thing you do in class. It could be a way that you are.
Yeah.
But look for specifics if you can think of any.
Okay, you can continue thinking about that, but as we go along, we thought it would be useful to be have that thing in the forefront of your mind. Larry's going to present his research. He's got some well-being factors that have shown to really enhance the well-being of law students and lawyers, and you can be thinking about how that practice or thing you do with your students fits into those factors. Which factors are you touching on with your experience or your exercise or the like? So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Larry to present. He's going to do a dive into the research. You all are smart, capable folks who are probably already on this same page with us, but he's going to give you the empirical backing that you need, and then we'll come back and talk about what we do.
Okay, so why and how to teach well-being. I didn't originally have this, but I added a slide for why. Basically, everybody wants it. A lot of people don't have it. Science now tells us how to get it. And there's a lot of extras that come along with being happy and satisfied with life and work, which includes high professionalism and high performance, a lot of research. And you can think about it anecdotally as well. I have a ton of stuff here. I'm going to go through it fast. We're going to make this whole PowerPoint and all our assignments that we use available to you. So,
Okay, notepad, yeah.
emails, we're going to send around a pad if we have one to give us your emails. We're going to actually email you this PowerPoint and our specific assignments we use and also post them.
We'll put it on the website,
Yeah,
the conference
we'll
website
put it
too.
on the website too. So, okay, here's the structure of our session. We're going to try to leave the last half of it for a little bit on how we do it specifically, and then a half hour or so for you to workshop how you might change what you're doing. All right, so otherwise the bulk of this is the research. Here's one thing I think to be aware of. I'm going to just hit this quickly. This is the foundation of the Carnegie report that, on legal education. Our initial training of our students to think like a lawyer actually disintegrated their personality. Nobody says it that explicitly, but that's what it is. Here's what the researcher said explicitly. Take a look at this real quickly. All the underlined things are segments of your personality that are eroded by learning to think like a lawyer. Again, you're going to send you this whole PowerPoint. Also, the handout has a lot of the key things here, not this. So a lot of disintegration is happening. And the bottom line down here at the actual bottom, all of this tends to undermine a person's integrity, which undermines our well-being, also undermines the ability to make ethical decisions, which is what the researcher found. So not the best way to train lawyers, but that's the reality. So we want to reverse that when we teach. Excuse me, I got a little pollen going here. We want to reverse that when we teach and try to be mindful to restore these things through whatever we do. You'll notice that these things that we're trying to restore and that are eroded by legal education are exactly the things in the research that produce well-being. Okay, this is not a dream world or something that anybody made up. I'm going to show you the well-being factors. I do want to say first, I think externships are the very best place to teach this, other than to be the first thing that's said at orientation, and it should be touched on in the first year, but work on that. Most of us don't have the power to make that happen. But we'll talk about how to do it in externship. All right, so that's the problem in the structure. Second part, the core content of what I try to teach students that I think works so far as we work. This is our study, also titled What Makes Lawyers Happy. I love this little quote I found when I was writing the report. It is hard to tell what makes people happy. Poverty and wealth have both failed. It's like an 1800s little quote thing I came across. So what is it? You see lots of successful and wildly wealthy people who are miserable. So what is it? This was our study. It's in the George Washington Law Review. You can also find it on ssorient.com with that title, What Makes Lawyers Happy. We use self-determination theory, which is really the best theory in modern psychology for what makes people happy. And the study essentially showed that lawyers are people. All right. Subjective well-being, you'll see in here SWB or WB on the slides for well-being. That's the kind of our scientific approach to happiness. You'll see it's not very fluffy, it's pretty intensive. And then where you see on the slides R values, those are correlations with well-being. So you might see someone's income, and that's going to have a 0.19 correlation with well-being, meaning that as income goes up a whole standardized unit, well-being goes up 19%. Okay, that in psychology is a weak but significant value, so modest. The perfect value would be 100% or 1.0. Nothing reaches that. So here's subjective well-being real quick. A whole bunch of positive emotions that people are experiencing, a whole bunch of negative emotions they're experiencing. and a whole bunch of questions about how satisfied they are with their life, or how much would need to change for them to be satisfied with their life. So all these are positive and negatively framed to be reliable. The New York Times reported on this study in their national news section. It was the most shared article in the paper for 2 days. And the reason is that it showed that success is not going to make you happy. Okay? Everybody who reads the New York Times is successful. And they want their kids to be happy, so they're trying to get them into Harvard and places like that, so they're successful and they'll be happy. It turns out that kind of doesn't matter, and this is what the research shows. It's very important for students to understand because they're all getting depressed over not making law review and not being in the top 10%. They're getting depressed over doing things that aren't going to make them happy anyway. So it doesn't mean success is bad. We'd all love to have a raise and nicer things and more comfort. Just you have to know it's not going to make you happy. So you better figure out what will. All right, so I tried to frame it in a positive way, traditional success. These external factors, money, status, honors, fame, credentials, etc. They don't work, as we'll see in a minute. And then I call these other human factors internal success to sort of create a positive contrast. They're all good. The difference is that traditional or external success is only slightly good for well-being. You can have it and not be happy. Whereas this internal success or these human factors we're going to look at, you can't lack those and be happy. You got to have it. Here's one exclamation point of the study. This is in your handout first thing, so you can read it down the left side. These are a bunch of the key factors that we measured, internal and external factors. All you have to do is look at the graphic. The internal factors are all in the heavy black lines, and the external traditional success factors like money and partnership and law review and GPA are all in the gray lines. So you can see that there's no comparison when we're looking at impact on well-being. Just to be clear, these are those R values I was talking about, so that as each of these goes up a full standardized unit, we have to standardize them because you can't measure money and internal motivation on the same scale. So we have to standardize the scale. And when we standardize, again, for each full unit that any one of these factors goes up, this number here shows the percentage by which a person's happiness and satisfaction with their life goes up. All right? So income down is all the traditional factors. Income, law school debt, which everybody says, I'm so depressed, bunch of crap. They are depressed because it's a mindset. I always remind my students, what's the first thing you're going to do when you graduate and get a job? You're going to go buy a house or a condo. You're going to go into another $150,000, $250,000. That'll be one of the happiest days in your life. So it's not the debt, it's your attitude. So, and that's what it turns out to be. Jeez. Maybe I'm supposed to spend more time on this. I want to look at that some more. I like to try to be guided by a higher authority, and I had to keep checking my car yesterday too. I had to keep stopping. I was going too fast, I think. All right, so you can see that the weakest internal factor is much stronger than the strongest external factor for well-being. Okay, that's the takeaway. Here's the critical well-being factors. We're going to go through them one at a time. I think if you don't have these, you can't be happy. At least most of them to a good extent. Very quickly, authenticity or autonomy need, which is the top need, is really a measure of integrity. How much what you say and what you do and what you work on expresses who you think you are inside. How much your outside shows your inside. Okay? Simple as that. There's number one core of professionalism. person without integrity can't be professional or ethical, can't be that. Remember, the linguistic study of 8 law schools showed that this is eroded directly by the first semester of law school teaching. Okay, second need related to others, speaks for itself, a sense of meaningful relation.
Excuse me, did you say this will all be in the handout or
This is going to be, I'm going to send you the
email? Oh, okay.
the whole slideshow, and it'll be posted also.
Thank you.
And you're welcome to use any part of it if you like with your students or whatever, if you love it. Okay, relatedness to others. Second pillar of professionalism, if you're not decent, respectful, caring toward others, you won't feel meaningfully related to them. And so they go together. And then attitudes and feelings about work, internal motivation, and confidence. Internal motivation is this. This turned out to be one of the most key factors that shows up repeatedly in the study. Are you working for money and financial security, external factors, or are you working because it expresses your values, you think it has meaning and purpose for you, therefore, or you love it? You actually enjoy what you're doing. If the answer is A, you're not getting much happiness from your work. The answer is B, you're getting a lot. And again, this is going to support professionalism because you'll be much better at what you do. You actually care about it, and you love it. You'll be more persistent, more resilient, more engaged, and you'll learn more. Okay, next item, autonomy support. You can see we're still at half a standardized unit of impact on well-being, 0.48. And I have more on this later, but we may not have time for it. I forget what time we actually started, but did I start at 10:50? 20. 25. Okay, I'm doing good. I'm talking too fast. You will get to look at it later and if it's again. I've got more slides later, but I won't have time to go through them all. In a nutshell, autonomy support is what you get from your supervisor, boss, mentor, and what you give to your supervisee, student, or mentee. It's a sense of support from a person in a greater power position than you're in. So, as teachers, we give this to students. And the question is, do they feel respect and understanding from us, or do they feel controlled by us? I'm going to mention here real quick, you can email me. We have our emails at the end if you have any questions or you want to see more papers. Dr. Sheldon and I did another paper earlier on law students. We did 2 actually, tracking them through law school. The one we did on this ended up being the most downloaded article for a year in a really top-end social psychology journal, probably #2 psych journal in the country for a whole year, because as you'll see later, it showed that the school where the teachers gave more sense of support than control to the law students, everything came out better. Less depressed students, way higher bar passage, way more internal motivation for their work and their career, their taking jobs, because they would enjoy the job and they cared about it, rather than it would pay them more money. Okay. And the key here is to be non-controlling and still set boundaries. So there's some tricks to that. All right, and then the last one, in intrinsic values. This one you can see the number goes way down, still 50% larger than getting more pay. I think the reason this one is not as strong a factor is you can't really feel values. You can see the values actually, if you have these values and work toward them, they promote the other previous, more critical things. Autonomy is about self, intimacy is about relatedness with others, helping others in community is about doing work that's meaningful. So still a positive factor. And again, to take a look at that. There's all those factors in the black. The rest, like ranking up your law school, ranking in your class, whether you made partner at a law firm, whether you were on law review, those all trickle down to 0. Okay, so a takeaway for students is this. Yeah, I thought about that Bud Light thing. I thought maybe I'm too old, but people have seen it. How many know that tastes great? Let's fill it.
We're old.
No, there's some not so old people in here too. Right? Looks good, tastes good.
Tastes great, less filling.
Tastes great, less
Miller
Miller Lite.
Lite.
Yeah, see if you have a struggle with that. Or else you're not a beer lover. All right. So, you know, it looks good, it tastes good, we all love it. I love to get a raise. I ask for one every year. I know it's not going to make me depressed if I get one, but, you know, usually I don't get one, and when I do, I feel better for a little while, and it's gone. It's like a new car. So, here's a couple of important contrasts that will catch your students. These will hook your students, if nothing else does. First of all, we group lawyers and judges into 4 groups and measured their well-being out of these many thousands of lawyers in 4 states. We had about 1,100 what we call service lawyers, which are lawyers that are graduates that take jobs that more for service than for money, like legal aid, public defender, prosecutor, government lawyer at all levels, from federal to local, nonprofit. And then we had about 1,400 prestige lawyers, we call them, people who would get the jobs everybody wanted in career services class when you tell them you got the big firm, or whatever, okay? And these, of course, are the ones you need law review and the high grades for, and you get a whole bunch more money. And what we found is the 1,100 service lawyers were happier than 1,400 prestige lawyers. So, goes back to that. So drop this, see if it flips it back. Okay, here's the next contrast. This one's even more amazing to me. We had about 700 plus or minus, I forget, 600 to 800 senior associates in medium to large law firms, and about the same number of junior partners in medium to large law firms, and their well-being was identical. Couldn't tell the difference looking at the numbers. What was different? The partners had partnerships. They also were off the stress wagon of making partners. They also had 70% higher income. Their well-being was identical to the senior associate. Doesn't mean don't try to get the higher income in the partnership, just it's not going to make you happy, so you better figure out what does if you want to be happy. If you get that and you're happy, then you were lucky because you got something else, like you got work you actually really care about or whatever. Okay? The pineapple. This is the breakdown profile of a happy lawyer. Can you all read it? I have it in this without the pineapple. Who likes the pineapple? Yeah. The lawyers do too. I just used this for the first time a couple weeks ago. And they like the pineapple too. All right. So, but this is what it takes to be happy. You know, common sense according to this research. I thought, by the way, this research would get slanted. It got published 2 years ago, and I thought we would get so many critiques on it because it's way out there in the methodology and comparing all these different kinds of things with standardized correlations. And it's saying if you're successful, it's kind of irrelevant to whether you're happy. So far, no criticism. So I think this is a restatement of what it takes to be happy. That's pretty reliable for a law graduate. Okay, that is on your chart. You look for the pineapple. I think you did it in color, right? Yeah. Okay, I love this piece. We don't have time for it much. But we're all clinicians and extern teachers and stuff, and go out on the limb. I think there's a love principle at work here. Love. What I realized looking through all this stuff over the last couple of years is there's one thing that ties all these critical findings together, which is we feel connected to something that matters. Ourself, true self, who we think we really are, or others, or our work. And that which connects in a meaningful way, we could call that love principle. I like to call it connectedness for lawyers. But I think that's an important organizing principle. So these are the kind of takeaways for students, I think. I think when they get this idea from whatever I'm doing, I think I've been as successful as I can be. Another one of the handouts, I'm pretty sure. Maybe not. Yes, on the front page. Okay, the key thing is the bottom one. Again, it's not that success is bad. Making a partner doesn't make people unhappy. Getting 70% more money doesn't make you unhappy. But there's in psychology it's called displacement. If you put your attention on that, it's less attention for other stuff. So don't let an external factor like money or prestige or pleasing your parents, etc., impressing your friends, supplant or replace an internal factor like you would love to do this, you would like to help that population, and so forth. One thing I love to ask students when they're trying to figure out what externship to take, I ask them, what do you want to do when you grow up and graduate? And usually they're not really dreaming, well, I did real well in crim law, so maybe I should be this, or I hated constitutional law, so I won't do zoning, whatever. And I like to ask them, who do you want to help? Simple question. Who do you want to help? You may not know the answer right now because you stop thinking about that. Remember what happens in the first term of law school? You forget about helping people and caring and all that stuff from the first slide, and you start worrying about how to get the winning argument so you can survive and be in the top 10% so you can get one of those jobs and be happy. Not. It turns out. Okay? So the displacement factor, put internals before externals. This is a handout also. I like to give this to students. This is a restatement of balancing these external and internal factors in a healthy, happy professional life. All the external stuff is external. Out here, nice house and car, some financial security, wins some cases, make the law review behind the class. That's all nice. Just don't put much attention on it. Put attention on learning, having integrity, helping other people, working for justice, find what you enjoy, what gives you meaning. These are all restatements of these top factors. Okay? So a nice handy thing you can give students that will guide them. And I encourage them to look at it 5 minutes a week. And I get emails 5-10 years later where students are saying this is still working for them.
Can you explain the 2 arrows?
Yeah, the 2 arrows. So this is I was actually going to, this is our brain on internal motivation. And then we get to make choices that will take us toward these external outcomes, more money, or more meaning, more justice, more interest, more service to community. And those choices are going to determine your well-being. Okay? And then underneath choices is reflection and support. We are here to give them support. We're the teachers. So teaching this supports them, and then their own reflection will support them. Okay, third part, teaching style autonomy support. I'm going to run through this fast because I already said it. When you teach, and how many are parents of whatever age children? I want to ask that. So you probably did this automatically with your kids. It means showing them respect rather than controlling. You have to control them. You can't just eat all the candy they want, all that. Right? I'm back with a 9-year and 11 and 14-year-old now, so learning all over. The good thing about autonomy support that got so many downloads in that big psych journal is that it promotes everything else. Mathematically, it's shown to increase all the other good stuff that we're looking at here. And this is what autonomy support is. Let's take a look. You give as many choices as you can. When you have to be controlling, no, you have to do it this way, you tell them why. And you tell them, I understand you'd like to do it this other way, you'd rather go to the mall. You promised to get mow the lawn first, so okay? That's the 13-year-old example. The 23-year-old example you can do.
So can I ask a question that's
Yeah.
related to this? I don't mean to sidetrack you, but there's all these
It's
studies
okay
about how
because she's watching the time. So.
There are these studies about how the millennial generation, the new generation up and coming now, have much higher incidence of depression, of anxiety.
Mhm.
Is it related to this autonomy problem? If anybody's done studies on that?
I don't know. I'm sure there's a million studies on that, but I really don't know. I know this has all been true before millennials. Anybody read the Bible or the Quran or anything? It's all in there, right? You're not get through the eye of the needle with your wealth. You know, it's like trying to get camel through the eye of the needle. You're not going to pull. You focus on that, you're going to be happy. Look at the Tao Te Ching. So this is going to transcend millennials, but I'm sure there's research. I know who is suffering more because I went to one of these elite undergraduate schools. They're having suicides and stuff in the Ivy League schools because of this. They're all successful, but they're not happy.
So I'm the very bottom of the millennial generation. I was born in '81, and I can say that I'm sort of
That's exciting.
I can say that from my perspective, well, millennials are accustomed to a lot of autonomy, and that we
Not
tend
accustomed
to. No, they are accustomed to autonomy, and so we tend to chafe a little bit more on more controlling measures that are placed on us, and I think that that can influence our mental health. And so I could see having a model that allows more autonomy with good direction and authority, but like you say, less controlling, would appeal to millennials potentially.
Right. So, and again, having the, I'm going to come to that back in real quick. Having autonomy supports all these things: autonomy, relatedness, confidence, internal motivation, all of it, and performance. That's what. Now, here's since you brought it up, here's the law student study showing all this math about when the faculty was autonomy supportive, all these good things happened, including way higher bar passage, greater well-being, and more internal motivation. So that's the younger people, the millennials or whatever came after that. I don't try to keep up with it, but I know it's important. Here's the study we did on lawyers. Exact same sequence, nearly the same numbers. And these are not millennials, these are old people. Yeah. And so these are going to be human facts that may be more important to millennials because they've been raised with more autonomy. They very well be. Okay, now we're going to get into the last little segment here, how we teach. I'm going to spend just a couple minutes since I'm talking a lot. And then Amy will spend some time on hers, and then we'll give you time. I try to give the students direct understanding first. That's autonomy supportive. Give them information that will help them. But they have to understand that this is going to be helpful. And I think, again, in externships, it's natural. They understand we actually want them to be lawyers. The doctoral teachers are mostly training them to be law students. I always tell my students, I get it, you're insecure. I mean, lawyers don't, you've been sitting in class for 13 weeks and taking finals. Not what lawyers do, they don't listen to lectures for 13 weeks and then take a test and then they get paid. You got to do a whole bunch of other stuff and not that. And so I like to give them this information directly. There's lots of negative data, which I use sparingly because they're aware of it. And I like to have them, just did this at 5:30 this morning. Put a space in there. I like to have them, externship is natural to this. You have them understand, then you have them observe other lawyers, you have them experience it themselves in their externship practice if they're practicing, and then write and share about it. So,
Larry,
yes.
can you explain the negative data, what you mean by that?
Yeah, I used to start with a couple slides about how depressed lawyers are.
Okay.
And I can send you that. Sometimes if you have a doubter group, they're helpful. And I've got a couple slides. There's a lot of ugly research. And the new task force on lawyer well-being, the ABA thing, and the Hazelden study, they just confirmed it all again last year. So I don't like to depress them too much with that. I'm trying to help them, but it does get their attention because they think, well, it won't be me. And it turns out 37% chance it will be them for interpersonal sensitivity and 30% chance for depression and other things like that. So I can send you those slides. Again, it will catch students' attention, but if you dwell on it, it'll bring them down to the page. So, it's a delicate balance. So real quick, how I try to teach, I have low credit externships where they're essentially clerking. None of them are just watching, but they're, legal researching and helping the lawyers. I have high credit immersion litigation externships. I was a litigator for a long time, so I teach that as well. And then I have the prerequisite course, the skills course, which includes this module in it for the immersion externs before they go. And pretty much it's the same thing. I give them core information readings, which is this stuff, and I will post and email you the exact readings from the exact articles. I have a few articles and booklets up here if you're interested in take them. So I have them read, then I have them observe at their externship, and then I have them discuss it through journals and postings on discussion boards, Plan, Canvas, whatever. High credit externship, same thing, except they also have a prerequisite course, so they get exposure to this beforehand while they're learning all the pre-trial and trial skills. And then they do the exact same thing the low credit students do, except they're actually doing a whole bunch of their own cases. And so they're really experiencing the stress of losing a trial, getting motion, information suppressed or not suppressed, and then they discuss it. So very, very effective, it seems to me.
Could you clarify, so you said you have a prerequisite course preceding the externship
Yes.
to give them an exposure to
Yes.
many factors and...
Yeah, I teach them all the pre-trial and trial skills they're going to need for the immersion litigation thing, and one unit toward the beginning is this, and then I integrate it as we go through.
And you specifically, sorry, I didn't mean to-
No, that's okay.
you specifically only do a full, like a high credit full-time externship for an immersive litigation experience? You don't do like a policy setting for the same?
Right.
Okay.
We do those, but not immersion. Yeah, we got hammered by the APA way back there, so we document the skills they learn. I'm not saying it shouldn't be policy or judicial, but we do those for half time.
Okay.
More or less. Okay. So here's the experience that the externs have. They really do get it. I'm hearing from them constantly as grads. The higher the credit, the more they're actually doing and having to reflect, observe, and talk about this, the more they get it. Because they say, oh yeah, that judge is not happy. I love the judge that's barking and all that. And I'll ask them, the judge is so professional. I say, does he look happy? Why don't you try to go to lunch with him, and figure out what's going on with him, or your supervisor for that matter. They clearly get it, and I do hear from lawyers. So this is on your handout, also some resources to study. You can, again, look at it on SSRN or the GW Law Review website, see the whole thing. I have a few reprints here. I have some booklets for students that incorporate all this stuff. And you can email me about those. One of them I have a few examples here. I have a values exercise in another where they can figure out their values. They always turn out to be intrinsic values. You do this exercise. I have this article in Clinical Law Review about that. And I have a sort of comprehensive article on how to get all this into law school so students don't get depressed in the first semester and then we don't have to undo it all. Main thing, any questions, email.
Okay, so I am going to, get us out of that. Here. Oh, you want to go through those?
No, I wanted to black it out.
Okay, I'm going to end your show.
Good.
And I'm going to say what I do. So, I came to this teaching happiness, and I put happiness in quotes because you could call it joy, you could call it well-being, you could call it a lot of different things. My shorthand is happiness, but I came to this because I was depressed by the crisis in our profession. I was particularly depressed by the fact that it was pretty clear that the data shows that that students come into law school fine, and they're no different from the general population, and they're leaving broken, and that's troubling because I'm at a law school, and so that was upsetting. And then this quote from Larry's research that was in my PowerPoint before I met Larry this morning. We talked on the phone a fair amount, but we didn't meet till today. The psychological factors that arose during law school are the very factors that are most important to their well-being. Depressing as hell. So what can I do about that? That they feel this way? Is that horrible?
Are you posting that one?
Sure, yeah, this whole slideshow will be available. So I've done happiness class or happiness things in my seminar in three different ways. The first is add-ons to my current seminar. So since I started in 2011, I've always had a class called something. Work-life balance, core values, what is success, something. I give the students readings, we do some exercises, and I have a 1-credit externship class, and it's always been one of my 8 classes. More recently, and I've always had journal or reflective essay topics or assignments. Here's a suggestion. What does a successful life look like for you? How do you know when you get there? They tend to have this escalator view of success. They get this, and that only brings them to the next prestigious thing to chase, and I kind of want to just have them hop off the whole escalator. Why do you care about making law review at all? Maybe you do, but let's talk about why you want to do that. I, in law school, was angry that clerkships were prestigious. I was like, I really don't want to chase the prestigious thing. I just think working with a judge very closely would be so interesting. I'm really frustrated that this is prestigious and hard to get. Anyway. But students continue to think they have to pursue the next thing, and so I try to stop that. I've always had an online forum discussion question. I've always thought the work setting was a fantastic place for them to observe happiness around them. Are the lawyers at their placement balanced? How does that compare to your summer at this or that job? So this might be some of the stuff you guys already do. If not, here's a few suggestions. The next possibility was a standalone seminar. So my school started something called mini seminars, where they're in-home seminars of the professors, and you pitch these ideas for 6 sessions, ungraded, there's dinner involved, and they're at your house, and so your kids are running around, and it's kind of a nice, intimate setting. And this kind of thing is perfect for that setting. We've got ones on law and baseball, and we've got ones on Atticus Finch, and My Cousin Vinny, and there's movie watching ones. Anyway, you can propose whatever you want, and these run every semester. So we did one 2 falls ago that we called If You're So Smart, Why Aren't You Happy? There's a book called that, If You're So Smart, Why Aren't You Happy? That has the 7 deadly happiness sins and the 7 practices of happy people. A lot of data in there, a lot of studies this business professor did, Raj. Last name starts with R. I can't remember. And so we did a standalone seminar that roughly looked like this. I have a handout. I think I printed enough. If not, I will certainly email it. I have a handout that I tried to flesh out from this mini seminar that gets to some of the readings. I usually we had them read, we bought them a copy of the book, If You're So Smart, Why Aren't You Happy? So we had them read stuff from that. None of that's still in this syllabus. It's not really a syllabus, it's just a plan. And mostly we had them read pop culture or popular articles like in the New York Times or the whatever journal, and TED Talks. So you'll see a lot of those kinds of readings and exercises. How to pursue what are your core values, how to pursue them. Odyssey planning came from a book called Designing Your Life by these 2 Stanford professors. They teach a class. One of them's from the Stanford Design School. If you can design iPhones, why can't you design your life? And here's a list of actually other resources that we put together for our class, but I thought I might as well hand it out, of books and TED Talks we found useful as we were doing this. So Odyssey planning says, for the next 5 years, write your goals, the path you're on. What does that look like? Personal and professional, write like a little plan. Not sentences, just like little pictures, whatever. A 5-year plan. Path 1. Path 2, Odyssey plan 2 is your plan 1 can't happen. Management consulting has gone away, and you can't be a consultant. What would you do? That's in their book. In my class, it was Trump was just elected, and you wanted to work at the EPA. Now what? And this happened. The election was Tuesday. I taught Odyssey planning on Thursday. So they had actually experienced Plan 1 going awry because the Civil Rights Department at DOJ was not on the table for that. So that's plan 2. Plan 3 is the pipe dream. If money, prestige, and family obligations were no object, what would you do? Write the great American novel, spend time on a desert island, what would you do? And the debrief afterwards is just all of these things seem more possible once you start writing them down. And you realize you could have written 10 plans for your life. It doesn't have to be 3. And so it starts to feel less tunnel vision. I'm on this path. I have to keep doing this thing. I have to stay on this escalator. Visioning, we took, if you've spent any time in Ann Arbor at all, you've heard of Zingerman's. The deli, it's a family. She spent time in Ann Arbor, we've already talked about it. It's a family of businesses, and they have everyone from new hires on as bus people to the CEOs write a personal vision for their life. And this visioning idea is you pick a date certain, 10 years in the future, and you don't write any of the how. It's not how you get there. It is what it looks like once you're there. What does it feel like? What does it smell like? Who's around? Zingerman's, because it's food, does a lot of what it tastes like. I have no idea what 10 years of my life tastes like, because I actually couldn't answer that for right this second, what my life tastes like. But the other ones made sense to me. They describe it as being the picture on the puzzle box. Not how you're going to put all the pieces together, but what it looks like when you're there. And it's interesting, we have them hot pen, which is just writing. And at first we warm them up with an exercise, and then of hot penning, and then we have them do, we don't tell them how long, they just write. And then we look back at them in the margins, you write what emotions it evokes when you read it again, and what excited you about that, and maybe you take a phrase of it and hot pen again and expand on that. And there's some interesting things about whether you went more of a personal direction or a professional direction. Both are fine, it doesn't matter. You can you can take this and vision about what you want your vacation to look like, or what you want, and it does actually work. My husband and I learned this concept and envisioned about what we wanted Christmas break to look like at my parents' house. And he enjoyed himself immensely more after visioning about what he wanted that to look like. And I enjoyed that he enjoyed it more, so I was happier too. And then where do we go from here is building a community, building a group of supports. We talk about, finding other people who feel this way because they're out there. My themes are: you're not stuck and you're not alone, right? So micro-strategy, like restructuring your day, change your mindset, change your whole career. This is kind of the crux of it. The little fish go into a bigger bowl, happier bowl. So then, this semester, I decided, okay, I'm not going to be able, we taught that as a mini seminar, and then we taught it as a standalone seminar. I can't pull in those other 2 colleagues all the time and teach just 12 students with 3 of us. While fun, not a fantastic use of resources. I decided I'm going to scrap my externship seminar this semester, mostly. I kept goals and reflection, and I kept feedback and supervision, managing up kind of concepts as 2 of the classes. And the other 6 are basically this. I'm halfway through that semester. I've done the first 2, and I haven't done the last 4 yet. So I'll let you know what they think. Because the first 2 groups of students signed up on purpose, and these students are just taking externships, so we'll see. But I don't think they mind. So far, they seem interested and happy to talk about it. And actually, so far I've taught them most of what I would have taught them in one class anyway. So we'll see. Okay, so I wanted to give you one exercise. We could try division, but we don't have time. We could try some of the other exercises. I wanted to give you one thing, and this is where those other note cards come in. So I had you have 4 note cards for this game. I've done this with my students every semester since I found this game. And I'm not going to have us do the game, because again, we don't actually have time, but I'm going to set it up for you like I set it up for them. So we call it the Giving It Up to Get Ahead game. On the first 2 cards, you're going to write 2 aspects of your life that you truly value, 1 per card. So family and exercise, time with family and exercise. Time with family is on one, exercise is on the other, whatever you want. 2 aspects of your life that you truly value. Students sometimes put music or art or dancing or time with friends or helping others, whatever. Okay, the next 2 cards, think about 2 qualities about yourself that you value and write 1 per card. Maybe honesty and good listener. So these are qualities about yourself. It gets a little bit more to like personality type things. And while you're doing that, I'll tell you that I tell the students before I make them write things down that they should only put things on the cards they're willing to share, because I'm going to make them share it. But I didn't tell you guys that because I'm not going to make you share them. So, but I tell them they're going to play a game with these cards. We're not, so you can just hold on to. And I do a different cut at core values too. There's a worksheet I provided in the materials. And then I have them do this, and I think this gets at core values too. Okay, so here's the game. The scenario, it's kind of hard to read, but the students are the first in their extended family and among their friends to attend law school. You and your family have gone into significant debt in order for you to attend, and I usually get a little bit of laughing at that because that's usually true. It's not a hypothetical, but we're just pretending. You've secured a legal job in the city of your choice and you're earning a high salary, however you define that. And I pause here to say I don't necessarily mean a huge law firm. I'm not picking on law firms. I'm just saying it's a job where you're making enough money that you feel comfortable. Your family relies on it actually and you as their primary source of income. And your goal is to keep your job. You need it. You're not independently wealthy. You don't have a great aunt who's going to kick it and leave you a fortune. And to be successful in your new job, you're going to have to give up some of these things. So here's how you play. Everybody it gets in small groups of 3 to 4 people. 5 is fine. 3 or 4 is better. And they read their cards aloud and share why it's important to them. They play 4 rounds. So you either choose to give up a card to keep your job or you quit. Okay? So you say, I might be holding my 4 cards and I say, you know what, exercise, I like exercise. I like how I feel after exercise, but I could totally give that up. I'm going to put that in, no big deal. And then I have some cards for the person who said, I'm giving up equality. They pick a card that like makes the job maybe a little bit worse. Like your supervisor frequently yells at you in court. You're the only member of your race, gender, or sexual orientation at your job. Like I give them like a little bit of a like, does this push you over the edge? No, I'm still giving up exercise. I'm going to stick with it. My family needs this job. Fine. Everybody explains why they're doing it. Or they quit. And instead of quitting right away, I have them do this kind of card. And this card is like, you just learned your boss is going to retire in about 15 months if you can just hang on. And you really wanted that job. Your child's approaching college age and you don't know how you're going to pay for it. These kinds of like, does that encourage you to stay back in? They make their final decision and it goes around and then you're left holding 3 cards or they're out of the game. You continue to listen to what people decide. And it's actually a really fun conversation to sit in on. I sometimes play. You repeat step 2 until you're out of cards or until you quit. And the winner is the person who stays in the game the longest. In the event of a tie, you're all winners. Because there's not really winning. Anyway, so these are the turning points. I'm going to give this handout. This is the game. These turning points are on this handout. So that you don't have to read these in careful detail, but this is the idea. These are the ones that try to push you out of the job. These are the ones that encourage you to stay. And the bottom, if you noticed, if anybody read carefully enough, I put you and your significant other find out you're going to have a baby. I put that on both. Because I've had students have that go the other way too. Like the baby's like, that's it, I have a family now, I'm done. And I've had, oh no, families are expensive, I need to stay. And I was like, all right, so it can be both. I don't know. I haven't decided which team it should be on. Then the debrief is super important, of course. The game helps the students explore their core values and what it means to balance them. I went to a presentation once where a law firm partner actually said out loud, he said, I just started at the law firm. He's now a partner. I decided it was a bright red line. I wanted to be home for dinner every night. And so I decided to give up exercise. He actually said this, and I'm like, and there's a little bit of like gasping in the room, and I'm like, look, he was intentional. Like, yeah, sometimes you give stuff up and you're intentional before you're giving it up. And he picked it back up 10 years later. Seems like kind of a long time, but all right, like whatever, it's his choice. And I just think that students don't realize that we normally give these things up without being intentional. We give up. I also have students argue with this hypothetical. They're like, well, if I give up my integrity, I won't be good at my job. Or what about my work ethic? I'll stuck at my job and get fired. I'm like, work with me here. I get that you can't actually, but let's say it just kind of like, because you're so unhappy, it starts to fall away from you and you start not working as well or whatever. Just work, there's always a student who argues with the hypothetical, of course. Anyway, so I encourage them to be intentional before giving up the things that matter to them. And I ask a lot of questions at the end. They're in the handout I just gave you. I don't always ask all of them, so that I don't leave students depressed and saddened by their choices, rather empowered. The other thing is that the reason the game is sort of tangible is some of my students have come straight through law school, and they haven't done this. My students who have worked get it a little more. My students who have families already they're on board. They don't need the whatever, but the students have given up a fair amount to be in law school. They might have moved across the country or left a significant other behind or whatever. And now I'm giving them something concrete. We're all on the same page, and it's also a little bit distant from what they've already chosen to give up. Yeah.
How much time do you allot for this?
20 to 30 minutes it takes.
For the whole game and debrief?
Yeah. Yeah.
At what point in the term do you do this?
Second class. So this is the core values class. This is after, well, in this semester it was my fourth class because I did goals first. I did supervision, managing up first. Then I did what is success and happiness, and then I did core values. But in the seminar that we ran, this was class number 2. And that's reflected in the syllabus. So hopefully they're empowered by the fact that they have choices that they can be intentional about. That's that. So now we don't have as much time as we were hoping. We're done at 11:30, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. But we thought we could get in groups. But returning to what you thought, what you wrote as your effective practice or exercise at the beginning, I asked you, what do you already do for students, and put it on a note card. Were you able to think about the factors that Larry was talking about and what they touch on? So the game, Larry, what does my game touch on? Giving them choices. Autonomy support, I guess.
Yes, I think the game to me really depends on what they put on the card. First of all, it tells them you better look inside if you want to be happy because it's not coming from outside, period. And then it gives them these forced choices, and most of them are going to be, do I stay with the outside stuff like enough money and all this, or do I go with my inside stuff, what I really care about? I think that's where these numbers would show up, because I have a lot of students trading a .55 and a .66 for .19, and they always end up depressed. You know, they're better off to stay in debt and be happy than pay off the debt fast and be miserable. So I think it puts all this in perspective.
Okay.
It forces them to apply it.
And I think that now that I've met Larry and worked on this, I'm going to do more with the first part slides, because I haven't done as much of the data with that. Yes?
So at a recent conference that I did with students, they really wanted to talk about stress and crisis management. The topic is work-life balance. Do you have any suggestions for how to, other than going back to what are your internal core values and how do you emphasize those in the work that you're doing, do you have any suggestions for how to navigate that conversation with students when they're trying to figure out what skills they're going to get in law school that they can take into practice in a very stressful field?
Right. So what I did with some lawyers, we did a mini version of this with, I talked to them about micro strategies about restructuring their day to get more satisfaction out of their day. I talked to them about flow, and I talked to them about like, don't run your day out of your inbox and that kind of thing. So they'll have, even if they don't have structure or autonomy over what assignments they're given, they can probably, to a certain extent, manage their day. And then some of the attorneys in the room were a little bit more senior, and I would be like, don't do a meeting without an agenda, don't go to dumb meetings. You know, right, within reason. Like sometimes you have to go to dumb meetings, and sometimes you can't manage your day, but to the extent you have the things you have control over, I talked to them about that, and then I had them think about changing their mindset of, there are things on my table, my plate I don't like, and everybody's different. I have colleagues who actually do love this. Can I move some things onto my colleague's plate and take more of their stuff that I do like? Can I do some trade-offs like that? So I talked to them about some smaller things that they could do with time management. There's more to it, but time management, that kind of thing. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
I have something after that. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that one of the things that I use that you have on here is this TED Talk by Laura Vanderkam on how to gain control of your free time. Is that the one where
Yeah.
she like does the whole?
She's like, there's this
letter
many
and-
minutes
Yeah.
in a week, and if you had a flood in your basement,
You prioritize
you'd
it.
find 8 hours in your week to deal with the flood in your basement.
The students like really, they really like that one.
Yeah,
Because, so,
absolutely.
So I've got something that I do with them. If it's any situation, it's in this clinical law review article, something around 2004. I think it's on that. But I call it control exercise. I have them make 2 lists. Basically, I take them through litigation, but you could apply it to personal life or anything like this, management issues at work, whatever. And list what do you control in that situation, what don't you control. And then I show them that what they're focusing mostly on what they don't control, and that's what makes it miserable. Since they don't control, it's going to have 0 benefit, and it's depressing and disempowering, so people learn to focus on their part, what they control. It's very, very effective. I get more free write journal entries on that from my litigation immersion students than anything else, including what the judge did and how they cross-examined whatever. Because if you think about it, it'll work out. So you could look in clinical law review or email back and what I control, what I don't control, and then focus on what you control.
Right. And that pot
You
gets
can
bigger as
actually
you
make
get more
changes there.
senior. Sometimes that pot gets bigger as you go up there.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so we wanted to get you guys in groups. Before we do that, think about, based on what you've heard so far, what's one thing you're thinking about trying? Okay, so maybe move into groups of 4 or 5 and maybe have a scribe, and we'll give you 5 minutes or so, and then we'll wrap up. Yeah.
One thing maybe before you split into groups, take 90 seconds sitting at your place and write down one thing.
Okay, write it
that you
down.
want to
Yeah,
do.
that's right.
So
So,
you get something fixed in your mind, something you might try, smallest thing, and then maybe get into
okay,
groups.
that sounds great.
What are we writing down?
Writing down something you want to try. So not the exercise you already do, but something from what we've discussed or that you've been thinking, hey, you know what, I'm going to try that with my students.
Anything that came up during either of the talks, it's something you might want to take home and try with your students this term or next term.
Right. Okay, and then move into groups of 4 or 5 and have a scribe, and we'll report back in a minute. Not in a minute, in a few minutes.
Steve Jobs, how to lose before you die. So we do this road.
Here, let me make sure we get your
Yeah, exactly, I think that's why.
keep mine.
Barbara?
For whatever.
That's one of the actions, to realize what is present, that's what's about.
Showing them this data.
Or vice versa.
So that we say that.
Are you sending things to that way? Okay, great.
Amy, we have a question for you.
It sounded like you're, I don't know what you're.
Yeah.
That.
My orientation last time, so we talked about what my role was.
Come from and so when I switched to classes, there were it's all great, like I need to what's good about it. The 6 words. Right, well, and that's, so I TED Talk, so during that class on work-life balance, something like the whole TED talks about being intentional with your time, right? So if you measure it's not that's right.
It's a book.
Be intentional about what matters to you, that
That's what I already said. I refuse to be busy totally. Everybody says if you don't recognize that the game is individual. And I think that's
It's true.
I mean, I think it's a good game. Like, what do you say as far as
but I can see how
and it's almost like how are you going to navigate those things, especially when are you going to navigate over yourself so that you're not necessarily
that's why I'm saying you're being different. And that's what
that's
the second
but I'm just wondering if you added this mention that allows somebody, to address that core value and stay in that, like,
The focus is still
What's going on really got to give up, and that's going to inform the job search and I think that's going to be the
right, I get and that's what I
The more you have being the first time you go to the better it is,
Flood is funny because they're fine. You just like couldn't see your face. Even though they cut me that. And so I'm just trying to get it's not that
Maybe the government lawyers are happy.
Yeah, they
I think
really
I
are.
heard somebody say that.
Yeah, so should we just do the So, let me give you one more minute to wrap up. Sorry to cut off conversations. Thank you. I'm glad you like it. It's fun. It's kind of fun. I don't know. Students like it. Like they're a little sad. I try not to hold on to sad. Yeah. But you do the same credit session there's so many other things more of a priority. I just Okay, let's come back together. Please, I want to make sure I have time for, I just want to hear from maybe one or two groups. I'm sorry we didn't leave as much time as we had planned, of course, to report back ideas that people had that they're going to use at their schools. Does anybody have something to add to what we said? Ideas that they either use or want to use? Yeah.
I just remembered one thing, the booklets up there, Larry's booklets. I, for many years, used my faculty account to buy those booklets, and I gave them out of my externship class. But I also taught professional responsibility for many years, and I had a journal option where you could put 5 2-page journals and you get extra credit. Almost every student chose to write about Larry's journal, Larry's booklet. And the heartbreaking thing was that almost every single one of them had the sentence that said, "I thought I was the only one." And the one that I sent to Larry was the woman whose first sentence was, "You gave this out last year in the externship class, you gave it again this year. When I read it last year, it changed my life."
Oh, wow.
And I said to Larry. And she said, "I realized I had a choice not to be unhappy."
That's beautiful.
That's great.
That was autonomy support. She gave choices. In fact, they chose this booklet, okay, whatever, but, you know, give choices like that.
One more report, and then I'll wrap up with a couple of things. Yes.
Well, we really like the game, and we were thinking about other ways too that we could like kind of make it our own or use it in different contexts. And one of them might even be for giving voice to values and actually making choices that are intentional, which is Amy's kind of big point. When there are even, not even just in work-life balance, but like when you're having a difficult situation and that the student's going to have to really figure out and navigate. So
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of ways to go, I think. Yes, ma'am.
Tack on to that because we also love the game and are thinking about possibly modifying it to have them practice time management because so just write all the things that you spend your time doing and what are you willing to give up to get.
Oh yeah, that's great. I have them do, one of the assignments I said is I have them do a journal of how they're spending their time and where they're finding joy in their work. And that's in after the core values, how do you live out those values? Okay, so anyway, that's great, I love that. Okay, so at the beginning I asked you to write what would make an unhappy life, right? I had a card where I said, what practices would you implement and what things would you avoid if you were trying to be unhappy? I want you to take a look at that card and maybe circle the things you remotely do. Like remotely, like be honest. That might be detrimental to your own happiness. And we could do a whole other seminar on how to make externship teachers happier. I think we
More money.
Right. But
Obvious.
But do as you,
The closing plenary is gonna get a little.
excellent, great.
So they get an advertisement.
Okay, perfect. So do as you do and say, right? So think about ways that you're modeling this for your students. That was the point of that card. And then finally, on the back of that card, got one closing exercise you guys could do as you go off to lunch. And Sue would like me to say we really need to get there because we've got a guest at the town hall that we want to hear from. We'll get there right after this. What's something, we're going to do circle, square, triangle. What's something that's still circling around in your head that you want to chew on? What's something that squares with what you already knew, maybe reinforced it? And then triangle, the delta, what are you going to change or do differently, if anything? I mean, obviously you don't have to have a delta. But,
What are those again?
so circle, what's circling around in your head. Square, what squares with what you already knew and just reinforced for you. And then triangle or delta, what are you going to change? If anything. And if you were all set, go off to lunch quickly.
Thank you.